Okay, to get set up for your website landing page, go to File, choose New, and change the preset drop down to Web. Change the size drop down to say 1024 by 768, which is a common website width. Change your resolution so that it says 72, and the color mode should be RGB color at 8-bit. Remember, when we're not printing, it's for the web, so 72 dpi is the standard, and color mode is always an RGB. Then click OK. That's how you set up for your template. Something that you will want to be aware of is when you're typically designing in Photoshop, there are millions of color options. Some, when you're printing, you need to design with that in mind, and there are limited color options for that. We saw that with the Command-Shift-Y, blocks off out-of-gamut colors for the printer. There is an option on here for when you're designing for the web. So click the Only Web Safe Colors. It will simplify your palette and give you colors that are safe for using on the web that will look the same on your screen in Photoshop and then same on your screen when you take it to the web. So I'm going to jump ahead a few steps here. I've already got something put together that looks sort of like a website landing page because I want to show you how to do your button rollovers. Button rollovers are pretty easy. The first thing you need to do is set up the buttons themselves, just a basic shape with the text in it. You want them to be evenly spaced. Whatever design you're working with, it's important that they look like they've been deliberately placed there on the page. So we need to create 3 button states. Now, a neutral state is the way the button looks when your mouse is nowhere near it. So we've all been on a website before and had a button react in some way when we roll over it. So when I roll over these buttons, they light up just a little bit. That's its rollover state. And then if I were to click on it, it becomes blue, which is its click state. So if I come back over to my Photoshop, I need to design a neutral, a rollover, and a clicked state. So here in my layers panel, I have all of my layers for each of these, for all of these buttons. And I will be needing 3 copies of each one of these layers, and that's going to get my layers panel really full and really busy in an awful hurry. So let's do this to simplify things and stay organized. Select all of your layers by clicking on the top one, holding down Shift and clicking on the bottom one, and then go to the menu flyout and choose New Group from Layers. Let's name this one Neutral Buttons. Now right now, the button itself is just a plain gray, which isn't what I intend. I actually want these to have a style, so I have already looked up a couple of styles and altered them the way I like. And my Styles panel is open. To turn on your Styles panel, if you can't find it, go to Window and choose Styles. Now I can just click on that layer, click on a style, and it will apply it. So I already know this is what I want my neutral to look like. And in my layers panel, anytime I apply a style, it's going to automatically drop down and show all of those. I think that takes up a lot of room, so you can select one or multiple layers and click that little collapse and it will collapse them. And there we have it. That's our one button set already. So let's not have to rebuild the whole thing to make a second copy. Let's just copy this group folder by clicking and dragging on it down to the new icon in the bottom right hand corner and let go. Makes a copy, so let's name this one Rollover Buttons. And I'm going to turn the eyeball off on the neutral buttons, so we're just seeing our rollover buttons. And once again, I have another style picked out, so I want them to change quite a bit. So it will go really bright when it's rolled over. And I also want to change my type because right now that white is hard to see, so I can change my type or any feature of these buttons that I want. Now, look out on the internet if you're a little stumped for ideas. There's so many things you could do. You could have them change color, you could have them change size, you could have them do all sorts of different things. So mine, I'm just changing some color features and styles on them. Okay, so there's my rollover buttons. Let's make a copy of that set by dragging it down to the new icon and name this clicked buttons. So these buttons, and I'm going to hide my other rollover buttons. These buttons have a drop shadow on them, which indicates that they're hovering above this picture. So it makes sense to me that if I were clicking on them, they would go down. And if you hold your hand above the desk or whatever you're sitting at and move it closer to the desk, you'll notice that that shadow gets smaller and smaller until finally when your hand touches all the way down, it's as smallest as it can be. So I don't have a style set up for this. I'm going to set up a clicked style. So first thing I need to do is grab one of these layers and adjust the style on it. So I'm going to double click on the layer in my panel. And what I want to change is the drop shadow. So I click on the word drop shadow, and I'm just going to change the distance of that so that it's very small. You can see the difference between it and the button next to it, and click OK. Now, I could do this a couple different ways to transfer it to all the others, but I'm actually just going to make a new style. You can make a new style by clicking on your little menus fly away and choosing new style, or by holding the Option key and clicking new. So there I've got a button that's all set up with that layer style on it. So now I can just Command click on each of these and set the new style. Now if you're trying to follow along and you're command clicking but instead of getting a layer you're getting a group, check on your move tool what it says up here under the auto select option. If it's set to group, change it to layer. You will like it a lot better. Sometimes we do use the groups, but in this scenario we're just going to use the layer setting. Okay, let me take a look at these. Actually, I think I'll change the type back to white for it once it's clicked. Okay, so now I have a neutral state, a rollover state, and a clicked state for each of my buttons. What you need to do for this assignment is turn on one set of your buttons. So I'm going to start with the neutral and then go to File, Save As, and change the format to JPEG and give it the name that is listed on the site for the neutral state button file, and then save it. And you will do that same thing for each one of these. You'll turn off the other buttons, turn on the layer for whichever one you're saving off, do a save as, save it as a JPEG. Now, if we were to go on with the advanced tools in Photoshop, there's a slice tool where you actually can cut up bits of Photoshop and then basically assign it a function in a web building site where it would actually be a functional website, and these would really be buttons. So being able to create a graphic that is visually interesting and has stuff going on for it can really give you a leg up when you're making a website in the future. And I don't have tutorials for you for the slice tool. That is an advanced feature, but there are plenty of them out there in the great wide world of YouTube. I encourage you to look them up and see how they go.